Hey, welcome back to the Group Project Podcast. This is episode number 81, and I have Melissa Barlow here. Melissa, welcome. Welcome. Thanks for coming on the show today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. It's just such a great time of year to be able to share everything that's going on.
So the reason I found Melissa's name, Melissa's the high school principal in Yukon, Oklahoma. I believe it's Yukon High School, correct?
That is correct. Yes, we're a one high school town.
And the reason I connected with Melissa is because every once in a while, I'm like, okay, who should I bring on this show? And I will just Google search like principal of the year, and I'll throw in like a random state. And about 2 months ago, I typed in principal of the year, Oklahoma, and Melissa's name popped up. So Melissa was the Oklahoma high school principal of the year in 2021, correct?
That is correct. Yes.
Congratulations. That is awesome. That is really, really cool.
Thank you. It's a huge honor, especially because it really reflects all the work that we've been doing here at our school too. So it's really an honor for our whole school also.
Awesome. So we definitely want to dig into what it is that, we talked a little bit before the show. You're a very modest person, but I really want to learn, and people want to learn. People are listening. Like, what are you guys doing there? That's so special. So we will dig into that. Maybe just share your educational experience. You've been in Yukon for a while now. You've kind of moved up the ranks. Maybe explain that and how you got to where you're at right now.
Sure, absolutely. So I am starting my 9th year as principal here at Yukon High School. And just working backwards, I was an assistant principal here for 4 years before that. And then I taught zoology and algebra 2 for 4 years here before that. Before that, I was in Kansas. I taught in Garden City, Kansas for a couple of years. And then in Edmond, Oklahoma, community nearby before that. But really entering my 20th year in education. So really excited, but so excited and blessed to work in a community where I actually grew up. And so I tell people all the time, I grew up in Yukon, and when I was going to school here, I knew I wanted to be a teacher, but I didn't know that I necessarily wanted to get into ed leadership. And so I say, if you would have told my high school self that I was going to be the principal here one day, I would have told you were crazy. But now I wouldn't trade it for the world. So yeah, this 20th year in education, excited to be back at Yukon High School. This is, like I said, born and raised here, and just excited to be able to share this with everybody that's new and joining our community.
So, okay. So I looked up one of the things that I first noticed about Yukon High School is the size, right?
Yes.
You guys are a big, big high school. Why don't you share maybe the number of students you have, the number of staff, and maybe put that in perspective for us in terms of size versus other high schools in the state of Oklahoma.
Sure. And so we currently have a little over 2,600 kids on campus. We also have what we call 3 sites. So we're here on campus, our largest site. We have an alternative school, which houses about 60 kids as well. And then we have a full-time virtual school, which is our 3rd site. And that houses about 75 kids right now. And so we're really inching close to 2,700 kids. And so really large school. We fluctuate between 6th to 7th largest in the state of Oklahoma, here on what we call the west side of the state. Here in the metro area, we are definitely one of the largest schools. And so really big place, 2,700 kids. We have 135 teachers, a total of 186 staff, including faculty and staff as well. So I always say we're kind of running a small city here every day, but we are really blessed to be in a building that is just 11 years old. We sit on about a little over 100 acres, 350,000 square feet is our building. We're all one building, our campus is. And so really excited to have this place, but we've grown almost 1,000 kids since we moved into this school 10 years ago, starting our 11th year now. But we started, when we moved in, we had 1,700 kids, and I'm pretty sure we're going to hit 2,700 this year.
Wow. Wow. So I'm looking at the map right now. You are on the, like you said, the western part of the state, and you're actually are you considered a west suburb of Oklahoma City?
Absolutely. So we are directly, we are a bedroom community of Oklahoma City. Most of our parents do work in Oklahoma City. So we're about 20 minutes west of Oklahoma City. And we are in Canadian County, which is the fastest growing county in the state of Oklahoma.
Okay. So you mentioned you're starting your 9th year as a principal. And this show, we always like kind of identifying the growth areas of the people that we talk with. Like, you once were this, now you are this. Because we got a lot of aspiring leaders who listen. We've got a lot of assistant principals. We're trying to give them some tips to avoid, or some things to avoid as their first year as being a principal. So think about 9 years ago versus now. What are some mistakes, or a mistake, or a bad habit you were in maybe 9 years ago that you figured out that you're like, okay, I no longer need to do that?
Absolutely. So a story comes to mind right away. And so before I became principal, great leaders before me, but really the focus did not really shed light on the fact that we needed to collaborate. So teachers really kind of existed in islands. Nobody had common planning time. If there was collaboration, it was really surface level, during passing period, maybe if they ate lunch together, things like that. And so when I started, I'm like, we are going to collaborate. We are going to be a team. We've got this. One, I thought all that took was just set up a bell schedule where they had common plan, right? So I was like, this is easy. We set up the bell schedule, common plan. And I said, you guys are going to meet. And at first I said, we're going to meet 100 minutes a month. You decide where you want those 100 minutes to be. Here's what we're going to do. Well, that first month, they were like, what are we supposed to talk about? And then it just started transitioning where I understood, like, it wasn't, yes, the structure of collaboration needed to be there. We needed to have that bell schedule. We needed to have that common planning time. But what I found out was that it's so much more than the structure. It is really training people to have those collaborative conversations. And so we started just really small. And I'm telling you, that first year was rocky, because there's people that want to collaborate and there's people that do not want to collaborate. And so my goal was to build a community here. We're a really big school, like I said, and I wanted it to feel small to people because that's how I remembered it growing up. And so I knew that collaboration, those small teams, professional learning communities was where we needed to be. And so I really just kind of took that, and over 9 years, we're still developing that. But now we have this fabulous culture of collaboration. We're really striving to have in-depth conversations during that time. It's just not so surface level.
So I definitely want to talk about what those conversations look like in a minute, but let's go back. If you could do that first year over again, or those first couple years over again, knowing what you know now, what would you have done differently?
I would have definitely set times for, instead of just having the teachers meet, what we do now is my administrative team. I didn't mention that I'm the head principal. I have one associate principal and I have 4 assistant principals. So there's a team of 6 of us. And really now each of us is connected to a PLC. We call ourselves the facilitator of that PLC. So not the leader, the facilitator. And honestly, if I could go back and do it over again, I would have added that piece of structure in first so that we could be there to help guide. Because I think a lot of it is we could have had a professional development meeting and I could have talked to the teachers about how to collaborate. But it really comes through that experience within that PLC. And so I wish that I would have created that facilitator structure back then. And we would have sat in those, we didn't call them PLCs back then, but we would have sat in those collaborative meetings and really honestly done like almost a training session as we were working to get them to understand this is where the conversation should be headed. These are the norms of a collaborative group.
So let's talk about what it looks like now. How often do your groups meet? And then maybe describe how the groups are divided. And then what goes on in those conversations?
Yeah, so now we meet once a week. So for instance, I should say how we're divided probably first. So our teams are divided by subject area. So for instance, we have an Algebra 1 team, a Geometry team, pretty common across the country.
Yeah.
And each of those teams has between 4 and 7 people that are members of that team, including an administrator. That administrator also is the evaluator of those teachers, which I'll talk about that in a second, but that's a great opportunity because you walk into a classroom and you know what to expect because you've been in the meetings where they've been planning. Yeah. But those teams meet once a week still. So formally, we call it a one formal PLC meeting a week. And during that time, it's just 1 hour during their common plan. So about 57 minutes. And during that time, we really focus on the 4 questions of the PLC. So what is it that we want kids to learn? How are we going to figure out if they know it? What do we do if they don't? What if we do if they do? And
Right.
so just really structuring, but understanding too that all of our PLC teams are at different places. Some of them we're still having conversations, or maybe there's a lot of new people in that PLC. For instance, we have some this year that have a lot of new members. So we're just really focusing on question one and what is it that we want kids to know? So we really dive in now. A lot of our really, I would say advanced, but PLCs that have members that have been here for a while, they are jumping right in, and we're spending a lot of time on data. So we spend a lot of time talking through our common formative assessments. Where are we at? We have a school day intervention and enrichment time. And so we really feed that time, that intervention time, with the data from those PLCs. So really rich conversations jumping into question 3 and 4 of PLCs of what do we do if kids don't know it, and what do we do if kids do. And so really just taking each of those groups to that next level, but really rich conversations now that we get to be a part of as administrators, which is awesome.
Okay. Okay. What does a normal day look like for you? I can only, I mean, I used to be a principal of a 1,600 student high school, which here in Iowa is pretty big. You throw on 1,000 more kids. I just, man, that's a lot of kids. Like you said, a small city. So tell us what is a normal, if I'm going to use air quotes here, a normal day look like for you?
So for me, like I said, I'm blessed to live in this community, and I've grown up here my whole life. And so for me, I get here super early. For us, we start school at 7:50. So I'm here between 6:30 and 6:45 every morning. I have a child that goes to school here. So I used to drag her along with me, but she can drive now. So it's just me. I get here, my first order of business for the day, I check on my email, just see, is there anything that I received overnight that I needed to address? And then for me, the most important part of the day is greeting the kids when they enter. So our school, like I said, starts at 7:50, but we open the doors at 7:15. And so it has just been something that's really important to me. And I didn't always do this as a principal. So this would be, again, something that I didn't used to do. And now that I've done it for the past couple of years, it's really fulfilling to me. And so I really spend the first hour of my day greeting kids, talking to them, calling them. There's a lot of kids here. And so it's it's a mind game, trying to remember their names, connect with them, and just try to remember something about them and make them feel welcome or special for the day. And so that's the first hour of the day. And then for me, it's coming back into the office. I do facilitate a couple of our PLC teams. A lot of our PLC teams are facilitated by my other assistants, but I do facilitate some of those teams. But I also meet with our special education facilitator who handles that at our site here. So it's really just touch base. I have a lot of touch base meetings. I really believe in that. It's really important to get those touch base meetings on your calendar, whether that be something that you're going to do weekly, bi-weekly, monthly. And so all of those for me are pre-planned. I put them all in the summer. So they're all there in my calendar. What is scheduled is what gets done. So I'm a scheduler. So a lot of things, it really is after I greet the kids, the bell rings for first hour, they're in class. I'm back in here looking at the schedule for the day. What do I have ahead of me? Meetings, lots of district meetings to go to, but a lot of time spent, like I said, with those different people for those check-ins, because it's just really, really important to build those relationships with teachers and other staff in the building to make sure that I can connect and have a really good pulse about what's going on.
Talk a little bit more about your touch base meetings. Who do you meet with? How often? What do those meetings look like? Anything you can share about your touch base meetings?
Yeah. So like I said, some of those are PLC teams that I facilitate, just like I described. But on a weekly basis, I meet with our special ed facilitator. So on our campus, we're obviously really big. And so we have over 400 of our students are on IEPs. So we actually have a member that is our special ed facilitator. And so it's kind of like a mix between a counselor and an administrator. And she actually oversees the writing and handling and the meetings of all of our IEPs. And so I meet with her every Monday morning. She's actually my first meeting of the week, which is super special. And so we just check in and just talk through all of those. Of course, that's just a different conversation every time that we meet. And so that's one of the people that I meet with on a weekly basis. My administrative team, it's really important that we have check-in meetings because they're just, it's a big team, it's a big school. So we actually have 2 meetings a week. And our first meeting is Monday afternoon. And that meeting is just what I call a calendar scheduling meeting. And so in that meeting, we just talk about the to-dos for the week. We go through what sporting events do we have to supervise, things like that. And that's really kind of a brainstorming PLC, if you will, for my administrative team. Taking us through the week, I'm going to end up meeting with my PLCs different days. Usually mine are Tuesdays and Wednesdays. I'm getting used to my new schedule. I have some new groups this year. And then on Wednesdays, my administrative team meets as well, but we actually meet every other Wednesday. So I'm going to tell you kind of about both of those, both really important. I transitioned to this 2 years ago. It's really been helpful. So we do a book study as an administrative team each year or each semester. We do one book each semester. So every other Wednesday we meet as a whole group and we go through our book study. We've done a million different things. But right now we're doing Generation Z Unfiltered. And so it's Tim Elmore, Andrew McPeak. And so we're really excited just to learn about our kids and learn about this generation and how we can really reach them. So on Wednesday afternoons, every other week, we meet as a whole team and do our book study. But then on the opposite week is something that I implemented 3 years ago and I've loved. We've been doing the book studies for a long time. But every other Wednesday, I meet with them individually for 30 minutes a piece. When you have a large team, you need that individual times. And so today's Wednesday. And so we met today. So each of them get a little 30-minute block to me. And we have key talking points that I kind of go over. They have an agenda. These are the 5 things that we talk about. So we talk about what's going on in their PLCs that they facilitate. We talk about the committees that they head up. So each of us have between 3 and 5 committees that we are the facilitators for. So I ask them for an update on their committees. I also ask them for an update on their evaluations or the specific teachers that they evaluate, anything that they'd like to share positive, anything that they have concerns. And then the last and final thing is, and we'll talk probably a little more about this, but relationships are really important. Every kid, every day. So our APs, our assistant principals, actually have meetings with their counselors once a week to talk about at-risk kids. And so they also give me an update on those meetings with their at-risk kids. So those 30-minute meetings, I know it sounds 30 minutes. Can you cover all of that? But it's real efficient when it's just one-on-one. And I just get a really good feel for what's going on. And it really gives me insight into the whole school to make sure that I'm just keeping up the pulse of what's going on, but also just for me to connect with my administrators and say, how are you? What's going on, with you? And so it's kind of like, you hear like families talk about like they have multiple kids, like they, take each kid on a little date night or something, And so with our school being so big, that's kind of where honestly the idea came from, was to have these kind of individual meetings, just to have some one-on-one time with them.
Okay. What would you say UConn High School is known for?
I would say, and I would hope that others would say, that we're known for putting individual kids at the top of our priority list. There's a lot of kids here, but every one of them matters. And so we do a lot of work and we focus a lot on what we call the relentless pursuit of removing barriers for all kids. We want all kids to be academically and behaviorally successful so that they leave us and they can be productive. And so that really is a focus. Everything that we do revolves around individual kids. We never talk hardly about groups of kids when we're in meetings with our PLCs or when we're in those counselor assistant principal meetings. We're talking about at-risk kids. We're talking about above average kids. We're talking about, depending on what the scenario or situation is, every single kid. So for us, it's every kid, every day, no exceptions. And so that it would be what I would be hope that we would be known for. Relationships are really important. It would often be, if I read you off the interview questions that we used to hire teachers, you probably think like, well, I don't know that she asked them very much about teaching. But I live on the philosophy, and people repeat it because I say it all the time. But we can teach people to teach math and English and history. I can teach you to teach that, but I can't teach you to love kids. You can't build that into people. And so we really try to look for people that really already have that passion for kids. And then how do we grow and develop that within our school?
Okay. You've talked a lot about, greeting kids at the door in the morning, your PLCs, your touch base meetings. Is there any other professional practice that you have implemented that you would recommend to others?
For me, I talked a little bit about it, but I think for me, it's about scheduling. And so the day can get away from you. Like you said, what's your, day like? And it's crazy, you know, as an administrator, you're going to get pulled in a million different directions. So it's really, for me, it's about scheduling and knowing that what's on the calendar is important. There are times, of course, that you're going to miss meetings because things are going to come up, whether they be discipline wise or a parent has shown up to talk to you. But really, really important that a professional practice that I have is to make sure that somebody is touching base with everybody in your school, and that through scheduling is getting back to me. So it's a really big school, but I want it to be really small. I want it to feel small for people. And I want to know that I know about the majority of things happening in the school.
I love what you're saying, like kind of that systems approach to running the building. Can you give me a little bit more detail on how you ensure that happens? You did a great job of like explaining your touch-based meetings with your assistant principals,
Yes.
how they talk with their counselors. Is there anything else you can describe from that system where you kind of know you have a system where the communication's going up and down in your building? Anything else you can share about that?
Yeah. So one of the things that we do a lot here is we do survey our students and staff a lot. And so I would say that's really, accountability is big. I want to be held accountable. I want to hold others accountable because our parents and our families are holding us accountable to prepare their children for the future. And so with that being said, we do a lot of surveying. And so for me, again, we've got a lot of people here. And so it really is one way that I can gather information quickly. We also have the committees that I talked about, and that's where we really garner a lot of that insight that's a little bit different from a PLC meeting. And so we have a grading policy committee. We have a culture and climate committee. We have a hospitality committee, because what teacher doesn't love to eat, right? We love it too. But we have all kinds of committees that meet. We have a school health and safety schools meeting, and those different committees are always working together. So one of the other things that when our principals are touching base with me, we're talking about committee work also. The other thing I should probably talk about too is that our PLC conference room is actually just connected to my office. And so every meeting that we have is literally through one door from my space. And so I love that. I may not be able to step in there all the time, but I know when meetings are coming in and out, or if I can hear them wrapping up, I'll open the door, say hello, anything you guys need to touch base with me. And so that proximity is really important too. You know, a lot of times people will schedule it or devise a PLC room in their building that is on the back hallway because it's the open classroom, right? And so I know that logistics, it may not work out for every place, but for me, it was really important to take what was my conference room and make that our PLC and committee meeting room. So that proximity is real important.
Okay. How often do your committees are they expected to meet? I love some of the things that you're saying, the hospitality committee, the grading policies committee. How often, what's the expectations around those committees?
So they are to meet once a month at minimum. But what I found interesting is that we have a literacy committee, which is very active. And then also our discipline committee, very, very active. So interesting enough, those two groups have taken on their own book studies. And so they are doing their own book studies. So they often will meet weekly. You know, and it just kind of depends on, you know, through the year, but they, monthly is definitely the expectation, but it's oftentimes more than that.
And does each teacher have to be on one committee, or how does that work?
So no, so we have decided that we didn't want to force people to be on committees if they didn't choose. You know, some people that's just not their thing, but some people it is their thing. So we almost had to do a little bit in reverse too. So we do have a structure. We have a whole staff list, and we list each committee that a person belongs on. And so what we try to do, each of us administrators facilitates one of those, each of those committees. And what we try to do is just make sure we're not overlapping those people. So really trying to make sure that we've got good representation on those committees. But no, we do it on a voluntary basis. Now, we might seek out and invite somebody to come and say you would be really good, and they may say no, and we might ask them again. But we decided that we weren't going to make teachers be on committees because we really wanted it to be genuine, that interaction.
And then can people be on more than one, or you kind of try to commit? How does that work?
Yeah, so more than one. We try to stick to maybe two tops.
Okay.
And what we try to look at is to see that those two committees that they can actually contribute something differently. Some of the committees do have some overlap conversation, which is great because you kind of get feedback from more people. But we've kind of decided that if they're on more than one committee, that we really are garnering different types of feedback from them.
So let's go back to your scheduling. You seem really like you've got a good mindset philosophy on scheduling. I'm guessing you have a secretary or an administrative assistant. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah. Yes, that is true. Yes.
Does that individual, do you have like a system set up with them? Is there anything special that you've learned to help them, that has them help you be more efficient with your time, or what can you share there?
Yeah. So I do like to handle all of my appointments and phone calls and emails myself. And so I do all of that. What they are really helpful about is the in-person interaction. And so that's really our main, I'm here in the main office. Obviously it's a big building, so we've got people spread out. So I'm here in the main office, and our receptionist, she really is the filter for people really coming back to see me. And so a lot of times, well, I'll tell you this, if a kid comes in, I'm going to see them. So I see every kid when they come in. That's important to me. So kids get first dibs. Parents after that, she is great about assessing the situation. Again, we have assistant principals here. We're divided by alphabet. So we're really family structured. Again, individual students, individual families. And so they know, they have one set of alphabet. And so the secretary will really try to decipher with the parents what it is they're needing. Do they actually need to speak to me, or do they need to speak to an assistant principal or maybe a counselor? And so she really does a good job of kind of filtering that out. And then if a teacher comes in, I have another assistant here, and she really does a good job of helping them. And so although face-to-face interaction is really important, I view it as face-to-face interaction with students, impromptu is great. Otherwise, I've got these things in my schedule each day, and that's kind of how we make that work. And so it's just a healthy balance of, I can see you tomorrow during your planning period, but today I'm unable to do that.
Okay. What advice would you give other school leaders who are looking to become a principal?
I think I always say this, having assistants, and the goal of having an assistant principals is to train them to be principals. I mean, that's the ultimate goal. It's always sad when they leave, and many of them have gone on to be principals. But the goal is to train them. And I always say you have to own something. When you go into an interview to become a head principal, you have got to own something, whether that's a project at our school, whether that's something you started, whether that's something you oversee. What is it that when they ask you these questions in this interview, what are you going to go back to time and time again? What do you own? And so we talk all the time about what do you own? And those committees that they're in charge of really has helped them kind of latch on to things that they own. I've got an assistant principal here who's really latched on to the literacy committee, and that's really become her passion. Again, something she can own and really talk about as she moves into that principalship. Knowing kind of how to create something from the ground up. We've got another principal that's really taken on our school spirit. We're a big school, so school spirit kind of wanes, right? And so she's taken on school spirit, and she's combating that. And so again, creating and finding something that you can own.
Okay. So you said this is the 20th year in education, right? The big 2-0.
Yes.
What future goals do you see for yourself as you look maybe 10? It's always hard to put a number on it, but maybe, 10 years down the road, what do you still see yourself at UConn High School? Do you have some other things that you're working on? What would you say?
So I get asked that a lot every year. It's like, I've been here for 9 years, and in a large district like this in the state of Oklahoma, it's rare to be in one place for that long. But my own children go to our school district, and they are, just really important to me. They've been very patient with my career. And so it's one of those things that I've always said that my kids, I'll be here until they graduate. And so for me, what that looks like is I got 6 more years in this seat, which I love. And then from there, honestly, I don't know. I love what I do. And I keep saying I'll be here until it's finished, but it's never finished. And there's always something else to aspire to change or to grow or to build or to be better at. And, for me, I live in this community and I love my job. My ultimate goal, I would love someday to return to my alma mater where I got my undergrad and teach teachers. I think that would be, that's my dream. I hope that it's in the plans, but that would be, I don't know if that's an after I retire dream but I would love to continue to teach teachers.
Awesome. Where did you get your undergrad at?
I graduated from Oklahoma State University.
Okay. I was wondering if that was, just right down the road there, right?
Yes.
No, Stillwater. We're Stillwater at.
Stillwater's about 70 miles from here. So not too far from us, but yeah, just super, super proud to be a Cowboy. I come from a long generation of Oklahoma State Cowboys. So, I would, just love to, I loved when I was there and learning. My master's is from UCO, which is just right down the road from us. That's in Edmond. But both of those places, anywhere, honestly, just to be able to teach teachers and just build that passion into them would just be, I think, one of those lifelong dreams.
How does that work in Oklahoma? Can you cheer for OSU and Oklahoma, the Sooners, or no?
No,
one or the other?
Not in my family, at least. Definitely not. So yes, I'm a third generation OSU attendee, and so. In my house, no. I don't know that my dad would claim me after that.
So all four. So you've got two kids, your husband, all four of you are diehard Oklahoma State?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Yeah. In my family, both my parents graduated from OSU. My husband and I graduated from OSU. My sister and brother-in-law graduated from OSU. My cousins, family, my grandmother attended. We've got, it's a long line of OSU folks in our family.
Well, very cool. Very cool. All right. So, hey, if you're just joining us, this has been a very fun episode with Melissa Barlow. Melissa is the high school principal at Yukon High School, and she was the Oklahoma High School Principal of the Year in 2021. And from this interview, I can definitely see why she was the high school principal of the year. She has, I've just been really impressed with just like how you understand the systems in your high school. That's a big building and it's hard. It's a large, like you said, like a city you're running or a large organization. And that the fact that you have created these systems where you know what's going on in the trenches of your building is really cool. So, okay, we're going to go to some quick hitters here that are a little bit more like just a little bit fun. And then also maybe just some other, bits of advice you can pass along to the listeners here that they can implement into their own life. So first of all, if we're coming down to Yukon, where do we got to check out? This can be a place to go. This can be a restaurant. This can be whatever it is. Where would you say we got to go?
Well, first of all, you're going to have to come on a Friday that we're playing football at home, and you're going to definitely come to our football game. Football in Oklahoma is huge, so you're going to definitely come there.
Awesome.
Before you stop here, you are going to drive. It's a little bit of a ways away from our school, a couple of miles, but you're going to drive down Garth Brooks Boulevard. Yukon, Oklahoma, home of Garth Brooks. And so you're going to drive down Garth Brooks Boulevard by our old high school that we were in before we moved to this campus. And gosh, there's just so many things, but I will tell you, if you're in Yukon, we are known for chicken. We have more fast food chicken places than I can't even think of one that we don't have. Just lots of great people here. You're going to drive down Main Street, and across Main Street, you're going to see a banner probably advertising a rodeo or a concert. A real small town feel. We are home of the Millers. So our mascot is the Yukon Miller. And so when you drive down Main Street on your way down Garth Brooks Boulevard, turning on Main, coming to our site, you're going to pass a huge historic flour mill. And that flour mill is where we got our name. So the person that used to run the flour mill was called a miller. And when our school started, they needed some uniforms. So this is way back a long time ago. And so they went to the person that they could think of that might have money in this town. And it was the miller. And they went and they got their uniforms. So that's how we got our mascot's name. So you're going to end up driving down Garth Brooks Boulevard, seeing our famous meal, maybe eating some chicken, and then getting back here to our school to watch a Friday night football game.
You're laying out the whole day for us. Actually,
yeah, you said one. No, this is not a quick trip.
Okay. Favorite Garth Brooks song?
Oh my gosh. I was going to say the dance, but then I'm not. Yes, I'm going to say the dance. I'm going to
Okay,
say
you're
the dance.
committing to the dance.
Yeah, I am. I'm committing to the dance.
Oh, that's awesome. I mean, yeah, he is still huge, obviously. I just remember seeing people. There was a concert, I want to say, in Kansas City, that a number of Iowans drove down to and shared the pictures all over Facebook and all over Instagram. And they said the best concert ever, so he is.
I've been to many of his concerts through the years, for sure. From when I was little all the way up.
What's your favorite Garth Brooks concert experience?
So I have to say that my favorite one was it was a couple of years, well, probably it's been more than a couple of years, but maybe 5-6 years ago. And there was tiered tickets. And so we had the latest tier was where we got in on the ticket lottery. And the concert didn't actually start until like 2:00 in the morning. And I thought, well, I'm going to be asleep. And I was not. It was the best experience of my life. But then thinking back to, I went to his first concert when I was 9 years old, and I can remember exactly where we sat and what we sang. And so all of them have just been great.
Wow, that's cool. That's cool. Okay, so next question is the purchase question. So is there like a sneaky good purchase that you have made that you're like, I wish I had this earlier in my life and everybody should buy the same thing?
Okay, so school related or not school related?
I would say not school related, but it's up to you. You go with whatever direction you want.
So I will say that my husband will laugh when he hears this, but my sneakiest best purchase was to purchase a phone from the cellular phone store and not just accept the free one. And so I used to just use like whatever the free one was, just give me the free phone, like whatever. Yeah. And now with this smartphone, I mean, of course that's been several years ago, but that was when I became an administrator, I just had like whatever free phone they had at the phone store. And I'm telling you what, now I do not know how I survive without a smartphone. And so that would be my sneaky funny purchase, that it was a very long time before I had a smartphone, because I just wanted whatever was free at the store.
So you led me into my next question, which is, what is one phone app that has positively impacted your life?
Oh my goodness. One phone app. So for me, I'm going to say Instagram, because I don't have a Facebook. It's just something that I just professionally decided that I needed to excuse myself from that when I got home at the end of the day. So for me, it's Instagram. It's my one kind of safe place with my own Instagram, to share my family pictures with my family, my teachers, my friends. And so it is something, honestly, like at the end, and I didn't realize this till you asked this, but at the end of every day, I love to go home and just chill for just a little bit. Look through my Instagrams. I love pictures, see pictures of far off places or people that are close to me. And so, it doesn't change my productivity, but it sure is an investment in myself.
Let's talk about productivity, because I think you've hinted at that throughout this whole interview. Any other productivity tips that you have for us?
So for me, it's really scheduling time to do things like answer emails. And I try to just be highly efficient at that. Especially if I'm going to do that at home. I always set a timer on my smartphone. I always set a timer and give myself, looking at what I've got. Okay, I've got 30 minutes until this load of laundry is going to be done. I'm going to answer emails for 30 minutes. At the end of the day, once we've got kids on buses and they're headed home, I sit down. I may have an hour because I don't have, anything that evening, but I may only have 15 minutes. I'm going to set a timer and it's like flash email answering. And so I just try to go through that. And I've really lived by, and I don't know where I picked this up, but it was not mine. But if it's something that you can do in less than 2 minutes, do it right then. Don't procrastinate. And so that's been something that's been really important productivity wise for me, is just really setting boundaries on email, because you can get sucked into it and it could be hours on end.
That 2-minute rule, I've also heard of it as well, and I adhere to it as best I can. Yes. There's a guy named David Allen, I think, that had Getting Things Done. If that rings a bell,
yes, that is it. Thank you. Yes.
He has a system for attacking emails, and you're right. That 2-minute rule is pretty cool. So during the school day, then, Do you have certain times throughout the school day that you attack emails? Or I think you've kind of alluded to that, but is there anything else you want to explain about that?
So typically during the school day, it would just be when I happen to be have free times between all the, like I said, I schedule most of my day.
Yep.
And so if a meeting gets canceled, then I'll sit down and use that 52 minutes or however long that period was to get caught up on emails. I eat lunch here at my desk every day, which I know people will say is not healthy, but for me, I enjoy that time. I'm eating, but I'm also answering emails during that time. But during the day, typically it's not something that I do unless, like I said, a meeting gets canceled or there's just a gap in my schedule.
Earlier, you talked about your book studies that you do. So I'm going to ask you two questions. Yeah. One, what is the book that has most impacted your life? And then two, what is the best book that you've done for a book study?
So I'm like looking over at my staff.
That's fine. It's okay.
And so honestly, one of the Tim Elmore books are great. They really bring back who these kids are and what we're teaching. We read a book, our last book was Culturize by Jimmy Casas. Really liked that book. That was a great book to do the book study with my team. Because what it did is we were in a great place with our culture, but we really just didn't talk about our culture. Like we talked about the things we wanted to do, but we didn't necessarily talk about the impact. And so that book we did that, fall semester last year. Yeah. And that was really a great, thing for us to really move forward. Probably the best book study that I've ever done, that really helped me kind of reach out to kids, and our discipline committee is actually doing this now, just kind of understanding, but it was Hacking School Discipline. It's written by a variety of people. It's kind of just little articles, if you will, but a great book because it really makes you think about restorative practice. There's lots of books on restorative practice, but what I liked about it is it was really kind of like case studies, if you will, on different tips and tricks, just like we're talking about here today. But that was a game changer for me. There was something that spoke to me in that book about the restorative practice and really getting to the why of, why the kid is doing what they're doing. And then one of the things that we've really tried to implement is if a kid's having a problem in a teacher's class, is bringing them back together with that teacher in a meeting, kind of circling up and having some of that time to figure out so that they can connect and build that relationship too. So I know I mentioned probably a few more than you asked for, but those are some that have really impacted us recently.
So would one of those be like your favorite book as well? Or did you kind of mention that? Or maybe I missed that part of it, but you listed some great books for sure. I know.
So the one thing you got to know about me, I'm terrible about picking favorites. Like you said, pick a Garth Brooks on, and I already said the dance. Yeah. And now I'm regretting it because I have so many favorites. Geez. So I'm not a favorite picker, but for me, it's my favorite one is the one that I need right then. So those, you come across those every once in a while, and it may just be one line in one chapter that stands out. Yep. But I would just encourage people to keep reading, keep seeking, keep looking, keep asking, ask your colleagues what books they're reading, and just really find, because you never know what book is really going to reach out to you.
Yeah. Okay. You seem, man, you've really impressed me in this interview. You've got great answers for a lot of the questions. So I'm curious, have you ever applied for a job and not got that job?
Oh, yes. Yeah. So my journey is pretty interesting. So I was teaching. So we're going to go back a couple of years, about 16. Okay. I was teaching at Yukon High School. I had earned my administrative credentials, and I was ready to be an administrator. I wanted to be an assistant principal. So I applied for an assistant principal opening at our school. And I did not get it. A gentleman got that job, and he did a great job at that job. And it was at that point where I thought, I guess maybe you're supposed to go to another school district if you want to be an administrator. I don't know. I did apply in several other districts at that point for an assistant principal job. I didn't get any of them. So I'm like, okay, I guess I'm supposed to be meant to be back in the classroom, which I loved being in the classroom. So it wasn't like a punishment or anything. Went back to the classroom for 2 more years. At that point, another assistant principal job opened. I applied for it and I did get that one. So that was exciting. So started that in 2009. But here's where the interesting part goes. At this job, so this principal job came open in 2011, 12. I may be off on my years. This job came open, and I went ahead and applied for this job, ready with my vision of what I wanted this place to be. And interesting enough, I did not get the job. And the same gentleman who had beat me out for the assistant principal job got the principal's job. And so, you know, at that point, it would be really easy to get discouraged. But at that point, I was so invested in our community that I knew that this was where I wanted to be a head principal. So I was committed to being an assistant principal until this job came open. It actually came open the very next year, and I was awarded this position. And so really blessed that I stuck with it and didn't give up on being an administrator, and really pursuing this leadership dream.
So you seem like a very positive person. Were you, was there any bit of negativity or frustration for a period of time? Or did you, I mean, you just brush it off like a day later? Explain how long it kind of took you to get over not getting those positions.
So, well, and obviously being from Oklahoma, I grew up on a farm. And I have one sister. So I always say, like, you didn't complain too much or you were going to get some more work if you were complaining. And so for me, it was just, and I just grew up with this philosophy. You just have to work harder. If you don't get what you want or be able to achieve, or you're not able to achieve what you want, you just got to work harder. I work hard every day. And that's the second I get up to the second I go to bed, it's about working hard. And so for me, yeah, sure, you're upset that you don't get a job. But in my mind and just how I grew up, it was just, well, you got to get to it. You got to find something to own, right? You got to find something to own so you can have something to talk about. And in both of those cases, I spent that time in transition from not getting the job to getting the job, finding something to own, building something, creating something, so that I had something to own when I went into that interview. And then, so I just worked hard, and it paid off.
So you seem like you're very reflective and you're willing to share stories. Aside from not getting those jobs, and you talked about that first year of kind of pushing on the PLCs maybe a little too fast and not having a great plan, is there any other like failure you can look at as an educational leader that you can say, like, I grew a lot from that experience?
Sure. Always in conversations with kids, I can look back 9 years ago, 10 years ago, 12 years ago, 17 years ago. And I think I've grown so much through some of those book studies that we talked about, and about learning why kids do what they do, why kids are acting that way. What can we do for kids? Every kid didn't always matter every day. And that's something that has developed over time. So I wouldn't say there was like one specific failure, but if I do all the time, I go back and reflect and think of different kids. But also there's a positive spin to that. I see kids, I'm hiring people are being hired in our district that used to be my students or in my alphabet as an assistant principal. And just seeing that what they've grown into and developed into, and knowing that, you know, what I did with them may have worked, but talking with them and getting that feedback. But that's probably where I would really look back and see over the years.
Is there any other specifics you can say about, as you think back to yourself as you're handling student situations 10 years ago, and you're kind of reflecting, you're saying, oh man, I didn't handle those very well, or what specifically do you think you didn't do then that you do now?
So I think it's about the reaction time. You know, a lot of times it's big school, we're busy, got stuff going on. And so I think what, honestly, looking back on it, was you get the kid in the office, they sit down, you're just like, come on, just tell me what happened. And then you just want to dole out the discipline and get them gone. And that was where I really started to reflect on trying to spend that time. So even now, I don't often deal with discipline. That's really assistant principal's role here at the school, but I do. In fact, I had a kid in here 2 days ago, and it's really now where I kind of just let them sit for just a little bit, ask them if I can get them anything. And then we start to have the conversation. And it starts with now, hey, tell me what went on, what happened? And getting them to kind of start that. Where before it was like, I knew what happened. The teacher told me what happened. So here's your consequence and move on. And they're like, wait, that didn't. And I'm like, you're out. Let's go. And so over the years, I've developed that, really listening to them and really understanding that the truth lies somewhere in the middle.
Sure.
And so really trying to support kids and support teachers, right? Like we have really high expectations at Yukon High School. We expect kids to behave a certain way, and they do. They meet our expectations, but they also know that there's consequences for not doing that. But those conversations really have helped and really just slowing down. But also, we talk about this all the time. It's building the relationships before the discipline or the consequence has to be discussed.
Okay. I love that. I'm wondering, in a huge high school, 2,600 students, I would have to think it's got to be very difficult building the relationships with all those kids before they come to you. So how do you do that?
So a lot of it goes back to, like I said, those individual meetings that we have with assistant principals and counselors. We know our at-risk kids. They're giving me quarterly feedback on those kids. I'm learning who those kids are and figuring out. And then principals really, in those individual meetings, they're conversing with me about who those kids are, the kids that, or the parents that they visited with, kids that are struggling, and me really just trying to pick out who those kids are so I can recognize a face with a name and then give that kid a hello with a personal touch with their name at the end. And so, yeah, I do not know every kid's name here. I do not know every kid, not even close. But one of the things that I really try to work on is, if I am having an interaction with them, even if it's just in the hallway, trying to ask their name, not being embarrassed to ask their name. Like it's okay that I don't know their name, and they're okay with that. I had to kind of come to grips with that if I ask their name, they're going to know that I don't know their name. But you know what? That's okay. I'd rather ask their name and commit it to memory, be able to call them by that later on.
Okay. All right. Hey, I'm almost to the end here of questions. What is one big goal that you are currently working on? We've talked a lot about professional questions here. What about personal? What is one big personal goal that you're working on?
So for me, it's just really a healthy balance. This has started last year, but it's a healthy balance between school and home. My family eats, sleeps, and breathes Yukon Public Schools. My husband's an administrator in the district as well. Both of our kids go here. And so Yukon Public Schools, the Yukon Millers, are our life. And so it's really trying to focus on really being strategic about those things that we talked about earlier, about scheduling and emails and things like that, so that when I go home, we really can spend that time as a family, and I can focus on, the things that I like to do, which is being with them and being outside. And so for me, that goal, I know it's not necessarily like a 10-year, a 5-year attainable goal. It's not what we call a SMART goal. But at the end of the day, that is my goal, that I really I give myself to this when I'm here, and I give myself to them when I'm there. And so that's been something that I'm working on the last, probably 14 months. And I'm seeing real improvements.
So what was one step that you've taken to focus more on your family versus work?
So a lot of times now, when I'm getting at the end of the day and it's about time to leave to go home, I look at the calendar and see kind of what we've got for the evening. And if that evening is not going to have any free time to do emails or anything like that, I don't even pack my laptop and take it home. And so that has been really helpful, because then all I have is my phone, and I already told you what I think about those. And so, I'm not going to answer a whole bunch of emails on my phone at home. And so what I tend to do is just to go ahead and leave that computer here. And when it's that case. Okay.
I like that. Okay. One more question for you. November 27th, 2021, Oklahoma State, Bedlam is going to have, right? Is that the yes. Bedlam rivalry? Yes. I want a score prediction. Oklahoma.
I'm terrible at score predictions. It's going to be close. It's going to be close. Okay. Let's do it's always pretty low scoring. So I'm going to do a 27-21, and always Oklahoma State. If I want to eat at the Sunday dinner table, it's got to be Oklahoma State. So I'm going to say 27-21 Oklahoma State. Okay.
So you heard it first there. First here, we broke the news that Oklahoma State is going to upset the currently second-ranked Oklahoma Sooners at home. And you said 27-21 on the 27th of 2021. Wow. This is this.
I'm just saying it's meant to be, right?
It's meant to be. It's meant to be. So, hey, cool. Is there anything we didn't talk? We talked about a lot of different things. You gave a great interview. Your questions were, or your answers were like spot on, just great, natural. But is there anything else we did not get to that you want to make sure you shared?
I think it's just one of those things that, you know, I'm so proud of our school because it really is, we do the things that we say. We're committed to hard work. And we know that, and my whole administrative team, as well as our teaching staff, are really dedicated to kids. All of us were chosen to be here because of that dedication. And really, it's just so important to us. And so we talked a little bit about that today and all of the different facets of the things that we do, but just realizing and just, again, reiterating that we believe in the relentless pursuit of removing barriers for kids so that they can be academically and behaviorally successful, so that they can go out and conquer the world. And that's our job, especially at the high school level, but it is something that we are doing. It's not something that we say we're doing. It's something that we are doing at Yukon High School. And I'm so proud to be a member of this staff.
Hey, there you had it. That was a great way to finish things up here. That was Melissa Barlow, Yukon High School principal. This was episode number 81 of the Group Project podcast. Melissa, you gave an awesome interview. I mean, I don't know how you could not come away like fired up. Like there's some great ideas that you shared there. And I really respect what you shared coming from what I consider to be a large high school. And knowing that others struggle to figure out how to really meet the needs of all of the people in their building. Like, I think you gave some great ideas. So, awesome job. Good luck this year.
Thank you.
Go Millers, right?
Yes, the Millers.
When's the first high school game?
September 3rd against our rival, the Mustang Broncos. So Mustang Broncos, just right down the road from us, another really large high school in the state of Oklahoma. And so, yeah, Yukon versus Mustang, the good old fashioned rivalry. We're playing at their place this year, but that's okay. We got this.
Oh, that's awesome. All right. I'm excited for football. I'm excited for school to get going. And hey, Melissa, great job. And keep up the great work down there in Yukon. Okay.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.